Hello and welcome to this video where I talk about the movies that I watched in the month of January. I usually talk about these movies in my full together monthly wrap up, but because I watch so many movies, at least this year I'm going to be watching so many movies, and I just want to talk as much as I can about them. I've decided to just make it a separate video so that way those monthly wrap up videos aren't like a half hour long, and I have more freedom to just talk more about the movies. So here we go with my January movie wrap up. I watched a lot of movies this month. I'm not gonna lie, I watched a lot. But let's first talk about the rewatches and then we'll go to the new movies that I watched and talk more in depth about those. So the rewatches, I watched Baywatch, The General, Pride and Prejudice, The Maze Runner, and The Scorch Trials. So now let's talk about the new movies that I watched. I watched a total of 10 new movies this month. 10! So the first movie I watched this month is The Greatest Showman. I got to watch this on my birthday, thanks to my mom. Thank you very much, Mom. And I absolutely loved this movie. It was so good. The music was incredible. The story was just so uplifting and sad at times. I found myself crying in the audience. It was, I don't know, it was just a very moving story. And now I know that historically this is not the correct story at all. The real history and story behind him is more gruesome. He is more of a villain, an evil person. But this pretty much just follows Mr. Barnum and the creation of the circus, and I loved it. That's really all I can say about it. I loved it so much, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched this month is John Mulaney, The Comeback Kid. This isn't technically a movie, but I'm gonna count it as a movie. It is a comedy special on Netflix, and John Mulaney is just super funny. I remember watching one of his comedy specials before, and I think this one was definitely better than that one. I did enjoy that one, but this one was just so funny. I laughed hysterically. It is available on Netflix, so please go watch it if you can, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched is Paddington. It was finally available on Netflix, so I got a chance to watch it, and I wanted to watch it because I wanted to go see Paddington 2 in the theaters, but I wanted to watch obviously the first one before the second one, and it's a movie I've been wanting to watch since it came out too, because it got such great reviews and it just looked like a really cute story. So we pretty much follow this bear named Paddington and his finding a home and a family in London, and it's a very fun ride. It's very out there. It definitely is not a realistic movie. A lot of the things that happen are not realistic at all. You kind of have to go into this movie not thinking it's going to be realistic, or else you're not going to enjoy it. It's more very fantastical and whimsical, and just, yeah, you gotta go with it. But it's great. I liked it a lot, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched was Dunkirk. Now, I watched this on the plane back to Los Angeles because it was available, and I have been wanting to see it for a while, and it was quite a long flight, so I got a chance to watch it. And I'm actually very happy I watched it. It was one of those movies where I was like, I'm either gonna hate it or I'm gonna like it. But I liked it. I was really scared I was going to hate it because I usually don't like war movies. I'm glad I liked it. I mean, Harry Styles is in it. And he's actually really good. I was very impressed with his acting skills. To be honest, I don't know much about war at all to know what war this was, but this was a time where they were kind of stuck on enemy soil and they couldn't get off. So there were tons of soldiers just on the beach, on the pier, waiting for reinforcements to come and save them. But we're mainly following this one kid and how he tries to survive and get on these boats that are rarely coming, but they somewhat come, and there's a huge line of soldiers, and of course they can't fit every soldier on the boat. What was really interesting about this movie was we follow 3 different perspectives and 3 different timelines. So we follow that kid and him trying to survive and get on the boats or whatever and get ahead of the line. And that, I think, was a week long. We follow that for a whole week. And then we also follow this guy and his grandson's friend, and they decide to take their boat and travel to that beach to try to help pick up a few more people. And that is in the span of one day. But you also follow this fighter pilot, and that takes place over an hour. So you have all these different timelines from these different perspectives and how they all just kind of meet up together at the end. I will say I did not know that at the beginning, so I was very confused with the timeline in the beginning of the movie. If I had known that going into the movie, I would have definitely been okay with it, but because I didn't know that at the time, I felt very confused. But by the end, I definitely understood that it was like, oh, okay, so that was taking place over an hour, that was taking place over a day, and the other was taking place over a week. I definitely very much enjoyed the ending a lot. I love how it all came together in the end, and it got very action-packed at the end, and oh my god, there was a lot going on at the end of that movie. Now, there wasn't a lot of dialogue in the movie, but I kind of liked that there wasn't a lot of dialogue. That definitely showed the actors that they had in it, their ability to really act with like the physicality rather than their words. Granted, there were words, like don't get me wrong, there were words, but there wasn't a whole lot, especially in the beginning. You didn't, I think like the first maybe 10 minutes of the movie, there's not a single word of dialogue, and that's just, no one really does that, so that was just very interesting. But I very much enjoyed this movie, a lot more than I thought I would, but it was just a little bit confusing for me in the beginning, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched is Cafe Society. This came out in 2016, I believe. It's an Amazon Prime movie. My friend had a screener for it, so he lent it to me so I could watch it because I've been wanting to watch it since it came out. It is a Woody Allen movie, and usually I'm not into Woody Allen movies. I don't particularly like them. But for some reason I still want to watch them because they seem like I'm gonna like them, and then I watch them and I don't, and that is exactly what happened with Cafe Society. I thought I was gonna like it and I didn't. I had a lot of issues with it, but first let me just tell you what it was about. It takes place in the 20s in New York, I believe. Was it New York? I think so. We mainly follow this one guy. We see like his family, we see his love life, and just whatever. He kind of moves to Los Angeles because his uncle is like a big time producer in Los Angeles and Hollywood in the 20s, but then he moves back to New York and he becomes like a club owner. But you also follow a bit of his family too, because one of his family members is a gangster. But the main focus is his love life, because he falls in love with someone when he's in Los Angeles, and the girl he ends up falling in love with is the girl that his uncle is having an affair with. And she ends up having to choose between the two because they both ask her to marry them. That's basically the premise of the story. But I wanted to like it so much, but I just feel like the casting was not that well done. Some of it I thought it was really good, but casting Kristen Stewart, I am sorry. Every time I looked at her on screen, I could not think 20s. She is, oh my god, she is like the opposite of the 1920s. It did not work with Kristen Stewart. And also, as much as I love Steve Carell, he was another casting that I was very confused by, because again, I can't really see him in the 1920s. Every time I looked at him, I was like, we're not in the 20s. And it just kind of took me out of the story. So I felt like the casting was not very good. The story just felt very choppy as well to me. I don't particularly like choppy editing and choppy storytelling. I like it to flow very nicely, but this was very choppy, and the ending was just not an ending. I did not enjoy this movie, although I really enjoyed Blake Lively and Parker Posey. I think they were just my favorite parts of the movie. Blake Lively, Parker Posey. Anyway, so I gave this movie 2 out of 5 stars. Now, the next movie I watched, because I got the movie pass, so I can now go to the movie theaters whenever I want and see as many movies in the theaters as I want, I decided to go see Pitch Perfect 3 as my very first movie to use the movie pass with. Pitch Perfect 3 is definitely a movie that was not needed, just like Pitch Perfect 2 was not needed. Like, they're beating a dead horse here. But I still wanted to go and see it, and I mean, it was still fun. I definitely think it was better than Pitch Perfect 2, but again, it was a movie that was not needed. But this movie mainly follows Anna Kendrick's character going solo. That's all I'm gonna say. It was really fun, and it definitely had a lot more funny moments than the last movie, but this one definitely had a little bit too much romance. They were trying to set up every single girl with someone, and it was just like, does every girl need to have a love interest in this movie? No, they don't. Let's not do that. But I definitely liked Fat Amy with her dad, and you get to learn more about her past, and it definitely brought the action and the like only good part of the story that I liked about the movie. So that was good. I definitely felt they kind of strayed away from the whole point of movie one, where it was like doing mashups of songs, and they didn't really do that in this movie. I mean, they did a riff off, which is really great, and I liked that a lot, but that was kind of it. It was still a fun time, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched was Paddington 2, obviously the second to the first Paddington movie, which I already talked about. But this one definitely had the same feel as Paddington. I definitely think it was on the same level as the first Paddington, because it wasn't better, it wasn't worse. It just kind of stayed the same as the first one. So it was still very cute, very fun, very adorable, very whimsical, and definitely not realistic at all. I mean, it's a talking bear, so it's not going to be realistic. They definitely had a couple musical numbers in this one, which was really fun. And I just really like that the whole town kind of gets on Paddington's side, and it was fun. It was very fun, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next movie I watched was Jumanji. I don't know if there's more to the title. It was definitely the newer version of Jumanji rather than the older version, because I have seen that one quite a couple times. This was one of those movies where when I first heard that they were doing another Jumanji movie, they were like remaking Jumanji, I was very nervous. I was very scared, because I was like, Jumanji is one of those movies you don't touch, especially when like Robin Williams was in it. Like, you do not touch Jumanji. You leave it as it is. But they touched it, and I'm so happy that it delivered. I'm so happy that they didn't absolutely destroy Jumanji or give it a bad name. Like, they definitely took a more modern twist on this, and it's more like video game style rather than board game. But it was so fun. I thought it was well casted as well, and I thought the characters had really great journeys throughout the stories, and you definitely see the change in the characters from beginning to end, and I really liked that aspect. It was also just absolutely hilarious. I mean, Jack Black, I think, was born to play the role of a teenage girl. He was the best part of the whole movie. And Kevin Hart, I'm usually not a huge fan of Kevin Hart, but he was hysterical. I love how his like weakness in the video game was cake. And whenever he ate cake, he blew up. It was funny. It was funny. I'm so glad that this turned out so well, but I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Because I watched The Maze Runner and The Scorch Trials this month, I think you can probably tell I was doing that for a reason. I was preparing myself for The Death Cure, the third and final movie in the Maze Runner series. Oh my god. This is based off of a book series as well that I have read multiple times. It is one of my all-time favorite book series. I love it so much, and I had been waiting for The Death Cure for so long, because it was supposed to come out February of last year, and of course they had to push it back because the main actor, Dylan O'Brien, during one of the stunts, broke his face, and he had to be in surgery and in the hospital for like 6 months, and that worried me, obviously, because I was worried for him and hoping he could like get through it, but I was also worried for the movie, because obviously the movie had to pay for his surgery and for his medical expenses, and then also had to probably pay him more money to be able to come back and finish the movie. So that made me think that the production value was probably going to go down, but surprisingly the production value did not go down. It was solid throughout the whole movie. So it was definitely a very expensive movie. Very expensive. I cannot imagine how much money they spent on this movie. I don't want to know how much they spent on the movie, but I am just very happy that they did finish it and it did come out, and I thought it did a very good job. I thought it was a great portrayal from the third book to movie, And I mean, they definitely changed a bunch of stuff, but I was okay with most of the changes. They aren't really in the city that much, and also Newt isn't with them the whole time. But they changed that in the movie, and I'm actually kind of happy they did that. I need to warn you that this is going to be a very spoiler review. Okay? So if you don't want to know any spoilers about the movie, skip it. Just skip this and go to the next one. But the thing I was most worried about for this movie was Newt's death scene. Now, Newt is my fictional boyfriend. I love him very much. He will always be my boyfriend. His death scene was one of those death scenes that when I read it, it absolutely broke me. Not just because I love the character, but the way they did his death scene was just so, oh my god, it's probably one of the saddest death scenes I have ever read, and I was so happy that they kept that the same in the movie. They did change it a little bit to making it a knife rather than a gun that kills him, but I mean, just they at least kept the essence of his death where he's turning into a crank and he's literally begging Thomas to kill him, and it's just, it's so sad. And seeing that come to life, because I've read that chapter 52, so many times, and seeing it come to life, it was just, oh my god, it was an emotional ride for me, that scene. I like that they pretty much kept all the deaths the same. They did bring Gally back. Whoo, spoiler. Now, okay, it's one of those things where I'm glad they did it, but I'm also kind of pissed that they did that, because they did that in the books. They brought Gally back in the third book, but at least in the book, it was believable he could come back. He was not dead. But in the movie, in the first movie, The Maze Runner, he had a spear through his heart. Okay, you cannot come back from that. And they tried to, like, play it off. It's like, yeah, when you guys left me to die, these guys saved me. And it was, like, such a very lazy way of explaining that. And it's like, no, I'm sorry. You were speared through the heart. You were dead. So it was one of those things where after watching that first movie, I was like, are they gonna bring him back in the third movie? Because if they do, you can't believe it. But anyway, it was, yeah, so that was something I liked but didn't like, because I love when Gally returns in the third book, because it gives him a chance to redeem himself, and he actually becomes one of my favorite characters in the series. Absolutely. I'm really glad that they did that for this, because Gally is one of my favorite characters, and he has some of the best lines in the third movie. Like, his part is amazing in this movie. But I just wish they had made it more believable for him to come back from a fucking spear through the heart. It was so action-packed, and production value was great. It was a really great movie, and I'm so happy they did well with it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I'm giving way too many movies 4 out of 5 stars. The last movie I watched this month is I, Tonya. I wanted to watch this movie because I heard it's been getting nominated for a bunch of awards, and so I was very curious about it. And of course, as you can tell by the title, it follows Tonya Harding, who, as you know, is the girl who allegedly hired someone to whack Nancy Kerrigan's knee so she couldn't skate anymore. This was a really great movie. I see why it's being nominated for all these awards. It's so well done. Margot Robbie does an incredible job as Tonya Harding. The only thing I had was Margot Robbie playing 15-year-old Tonya Harding. I couldn't believe she was 15. I was like, I'm sorry. She does not look 15 there. I know you're trying your best to make her look 15, but nope. It wasn't until I think they got her into her, like, 20s or whatever, where it was like, okay, now I can believe that she's Tonya Harding, because she actually looks that age. I actually had no idea the story behind Tonya Harding, and, like, her childhood, all the way to how she became an ice skater, and, like, her relationship with her husband, too. Like, that was, whew, my goodness, very violent. It's one of those movies where, like, by the end, you still don't know if she actually did it or not, or if she knew about it, but by the end of the movie, you definitely feel for her. And I love the way it was told, too, because you see interviews with all the people, and then you also cut back to, like, story, and sometimes in the middle of the story they'll, like, face the camera and, like, break the third wall and start talking to the camera a little bit. I truly, truly loved it. I felt like it was a little bit too long, to be honest. I wanted it to be a little bit shorter, but overall, truly great, and I want it to win. So yeah, no, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. What did you expect? So those are pretty much the movies of January. I hope you liked this video. I hope you like this new setup I've got going. So subscribe to my channel if you do like it. Also check out the books that I read in January, and then also check out just my favorites of the month of January. And yeah, I'll see you guys later with another video. Bye!